Hello and welcome to the video update here on the RDOS at the RDOS boardroom. This is for August 1st, 2023, and we're recording live at 1 o'clock. We are on the traditional territory of the Syilx people in the Okanagan Nation, and it's important to let you know that the RDOS is committed to working with and understanding the Indigenous peoples of this region. My name is Erick Thompson. I'm an information officer with the Emergency Operations Center. In just a moment, Shaelee will join us from BC Wildfire Service, Shaelee Stearns. Anyone from the media who's watching, if you look at one of our previous two videos, all of the names and contact or the names and name spellings are in the description box, and then we'll be updating this one after we finish going live, and then this recording will be available. We will be talking about a couple of different things. In just a few minutes, we will hear from the mayor of the town of Osoyoos, McKortoff, and then we'll go right now to Shaelee Stearns, an information officer with BC Wildfire Service. And I'll just let our operator Danny know that what we'll do is we'll hear from Shaelee, and then we'll bring up that perimeter map after that. Shaelee, thank you again for joining us. I know you have the incident management team coming in, so you likely won't be here during our next broadcast, but we're not at this point planning to do another broadcast on Wednesday unless it's warranted, unless there's a need. So this may be a wrap up for now. And I'll ask you if you can give us the latest, Shaelee.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Erick. I will be hanging around a little bit longer once the incident management team is placed, so you'll probably still see my name and contact information available for anyone who has any questions and anything like that. But I'll go into a brief rundown, just looking at our resourcing currently as we have this incident management team move in. So we do now have the team getting established today. We have 50 wildland firefighters responding to the incident, as well as 65 structure protection personnel responding. We also have 6 helicopters, 2 of which are currently assigned to the incident, but there are 4 of which that are currently assigned to the incident, and then 2 more are coming into the afternoon today as well. And we have 10 helicopters, or not 10 heavy equipment. Sorry, everyone. We have 10 pieces of heavy equipment assigned to it today as well. We're getting some additional numbers of pieces of heavy equipment, which is counted in that, added to the west side of the fire today. And now I'll go into a bit of a rundown of what we've seen. So last night, we did have a crew and structure protection personnel that continued to patrol our priority areas around the fire. We did see limited growth observed along both the east and the north flanks last night of the fire. So just for reference, that east flank is the one closest in proximity to the city of Osoyoos. So we saw limited growth in that area. A majority of the activity that we have been seeing is along the west flank and the northwest corner of the wildfire. So that's due to the winds that we're seeing in the area and the fuel types that are available. That's where we're seeing most of that activity. We're continuously working with the U.S. incident management team that is responding to the portion of the wildfire on the south side of the Canada-U.S. border. And the incident management team coming in today is starting to get integrated with their counterparts on that team as well. Going into responses today, this morning, we had heavy equipment and wildfire personnel that started early and are working on a contingency line that will tie into Highway 3. And they'll be on top of that contingency sign. We're also working off of Highway 3 and moving westward into an old guard from a previous fire and looking to establish that in conjunction with it. We will have a line locator also scouting further objectives for heavy equipment along the north flank of the fire there, looking to put in some guards. The structure protection are also on scene, as I mentioned, and they're continuing to triage properties and set up gear as needed throughout the day. And then I think that's mainly it for operational pieces that we've seen. Looking at weather, we're expecting similar weather as to what we had yesterday with the potential for that wind shift later on in the afternoon. So we're mainly seeing north to northwest winds, and then the shifts, we get to see those south to southeast winds. So that'll be something that crews will monitor and look for that shift later on throughout the day. I think the last thing I just want to mention is we've been talking a lot about boating and the importance and safety around that and on the lake, but also the operation of aircrafts that aren't associated with wildfire suppression activities, including unmanned aerial vehicles such as UAVs or drones. The operation of these around and in and around wildfires is illegal, and not only does it prevent activity, much like boating sometimes does on a lake. Not only does it prevent our suppression efforts, but it can completely shut down aerial firefighting, which can be a big benefit to our crews working on the ground. And it is a high safety concern when something like this happens. So I think for the interest of crew and public safety, it's just a good reminder for people to not use any UAVs or drone within the area of a wildfire. And I think that's about it for my update, Eric, so I'll pass it back.
Thank you, Shaelee. We'll go to questions from the media in just a moment. So that brings up the question, have there been incidents with the drones in this wildfire that you've seen? And can you give us any details on that?
I don't have specific details. I know it has been made aware that I think there's been some use, so it's just good to put it out there before it does hinder any operations.
All right, I'll put it open up to the media now. If we have any questions, anyone who's online who has any questions for Shaelee Stearns. We also have the chair of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, Mark Pendergraft, with us. He's also the Electoral Area Director for Area A, and the Mayor of Osoyoos, Sue McKortoff, and she's going to join us in just a couple of minutes to talk a bit about water conservation and reiterate what you were talking about, Shaelee, with regard to the lake and staying out of the way of those aircraft. How busy is it around Osoyoos Lake right now as far as aircraft?
So like I mentioned, we have the 6 helicopters, and then if needed, we will have air tankers again throughout the course of the day if there are objectives that are identified where they could be successful or achieve those objectives. Those requests might be put in and made available to us throughout the day. But currently, there are 6 helicopters assigned to the incident.
Okay. We do have an update on evacuation alerts, and we'll have that in just a moment. Before we get to that, are there any pressing concerns right now with regard to fighting this wildfire? We've heard that some areas, and this happens often during wildfires, people have chosen not to leave an area under evacuation order. Did you want to talk about how that can be challenging with some of the operations that need to take place throughout the wildfire?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is people's choices. However, it does, when people do choose to stay, it can put our own crews at risk if they have to go in and do tactical evacuations, if places become unsafe for people to stay. I don't have any specifics, but once again, I think it's one of those things where it's a good reminder. You're in an order area, it's deemed unsafe. That's why we've made those recommendations. This is still a very evolving situation. I think we're still within the first 36 hours or whatnot for this incident, and it's still unfolding. So it's just good for people to keep that in mind if they're choosing to stay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Are you able to stand by? I don't see any questions from the media at this point, Shaelee. Are you able to stand by for a few minutes?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I do see one now. We got a hand up from Brianna Charlebois, and I believe Brianna is with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC. Brianna, go ahead, please. Nope, no hand. Okay. Oh, she's in the chat. We'll find her in just a moment. Okay, you know what I'm going to do in the meantime? I really should get this information out. We've just had it confirmed, and this is a rescind of some evacuation alerts. So along the eastern flank of this fire, through the town of Osoyoos and parts of the RDOS, the alert is changing, and the information is being posted on the RDOS Emergency Operations Center and the RDOS website, and the town of Osoyoos will be posting it as well. And the numbers that I have right now are that the evacuation order, number of properties impacted right now, are 48 for Osoyoos. So that has decreased considerably. So right now, a total of 48 properties remain under evacuation order for the town of Osoyoos. And you can see there on the interactive map on the RDOS Emergency Operations Center website, that section in green. And for the RDOS, the number of properties that remain on evacuation order has now dropped to 143. I'll give you those numbers again. Properties under evacuation order for the town of Osoyoos, 48. For the RDOS, 143 due to the Eagle Bluff wildfire. And here are the latest numbers as of 1 o'clock Pacific time on August 1st for the evacuation alerts in place in Osoyoos. 487 properties remain on evacuation alert in the town of Osoyoos. And for the RDOS, that number is 482. I'm going to go back to Shaelee rather, for just a moment. We have a question from Brianna, and then I was hoping we could ask you, Shaelee, to talk a little bit about why those evacuation alerts have now been rescinded. I think we have a good understanding of why, but maybe you can talk to a bit more of the specifics. Question now from, it says here Canadian Press. I'm sorry about that, Brianna. She wants to know if we have numbers yet on how close the flames got to homes. We did have a question about that yesterday, and there were some questions we were hoping to try to clarify that we haven't been able to, other than I do have some numbers on local fire departments, but how close the flames may have gotten to homes. Do we know how close they may be to the town right now? And I don't know if you can see the chat there, Shaelee, if you want to go to those next few questions, but let's start with proximity. That's a tough one.
Yeah, so I did contact with our operations team on this, and as it's like hard to get our exact measurement on the ground, I do want to refer people to our wildfire map in this situation. The perimeter of the wildfire is updated daily on that map, and there is a measurement tool that can be found directly on the map. It looks like a small ruler. And based off of that, you can zoom into what properties you're specifically inquiring about on that map, and you can see within the proximity. Oh, beautiful. Look at that popping up. You can see within how the proximity wise that is to the active perimeter that we have on the map. So it actually doesn't look like it's popping up here, but normally when you're in the map homepage, it'll show like the Eagle Bluff, and then it can show the wildfire list on the other side. But if you go specifically just to the map itself on the interactive part, you'll see that there's a little ruler at the top there, and you can make that assessment there for yourself for whatever space you're inquiring to. And then going into what would happen if the winds do shift. So this is already something that we've experienced over the last few days. We've had wind shifts into the afternoon, evening on this fire, and we have seen that activity, especially on the western flank, start to increase. So that is something that has already unfolded, and we're expecting the similar conditions to see today. And then how does the Eagle Bluff fire compare to others across the province, and what is expected going forward? So there are obviously numerous fires burning across the province of BC currently. And when we respond to fires throughout the BC Wildfire Service, we respond in a list of priorities. The first always being human life and safety. The second, you get into properties, and then environment, and then values beyond that. So obviously this fire is burning in an interface area. So it is a higher priority fire. And you can definitely see that in the resourcing that is going into this incident. That's something, as long as that fire is threatening those priorities that we have, it's something that we'll be responding to continuously.
Thank you, Shaelee. And I should point out the map that we're looking at right now, which is the BC wildfire map. It shows the perimeter, but also the alerts and orders. If I'm not mistaken, that alert and order part of it hasn't been updated to reflect the new one that's just become live now on the RDOS interactive map, and will follow shortly then. There are questions often when these wildfires happen about how do you compare them to others, and it really is difficult to compare one fire to the next because they are all, they change so quickly, but there are some consistent themes, and one of them is that there's that precaution to make sure that if there's a chance for the winds to change, if there's a chance for that fire to move into populated areas, you have to do everything you can as a local government and BC Wildfire fighting that fire to make sure people aren't in the way. Can we talk for just a moment before we go to the mayor of Osoyoos, and then we have Sue Pollack standing by as well with Interior Health to talk a little bit about some of the smoke and the concerns around air quality. How challenging has this been for firefighting crews, both BC Wildfire and the other fire departments, in trying to protect these homes and fight this fire?
I mean, obviously, we've had a fast response to this fire, and we've been working at 24 hours a day. Those operation periods still remain in place, so we have both day and night crews on this fire. certain parts of this fire, the terrain has been challenging, especially along that west flank. So that's where obviously our main priorities still remain to be the east flank and then up to the Kilpoola area there, and that's where we're concentrating resources. But we're starting to shift and look into that western flank, as we've seen with that the changes in alerts and orders. Those changes there have been reflecting the good work that firefighters are doing, especially as they continue up along that eastern flank. And not only here in Canada, but also in the US, those impacts are felt on both sides there. So it is something good to look forward to see that. And we're still planning ahead. Like I mentioned, it's an evolving situation. And as this fire changes, tactics and objectives will change along with it.
And I believe this fire is still listed as out of control?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Shaelee, you're welcome to stand by if you're able to. If you do have to run to catch up with the other work that I know you're involved in, please feel free. But we do really appreciate you taking the time to update people on exactly what's going on with the Eagle Bluff wildfire. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to the mayor of the town of Osoyoos, Sue McKortoff. Sue is also a director with the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen. And Sue, I can let you know, Mayor McKortoff, that the total number of properties that were on alert and order that have been now moved to rescind are 1,600. So that was 1,600 properties that are now what we would call in the clear, but it's always good to still remain vigilant and be prepared. Mayor McKortoff, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about water conservation and a few other points.
Thank you very much, Eric. So we are very happy today to have the positive changes announced to the orders and the alerts. But we still have an evacuation order for the industrial park area of the town of Osoyoos. Residents and businesses under evacuation order are reminded to continue to stay out of the area to allow crews to conduct operations safely. There are also alerts in other places in the community that will be available on the new map. BC Wildfire is continuing to use Osoyoos Lake for fire suppression. We are reminding people that if they're using the lake, they need to ensure that they're not impeding the helicopters and planes that are using that as well. Please make sure that you are aware of your surroundings at all times. We also ask residents and businesses to follow the town of Osoyoos water restrictions and conserve water to ensure that we have water for firefighting purposes. If you're thinking about visiting Osoyoos, know before you go. The town of Osoyoos is still welcoming visitors to our community. Destination Osoyoos website is a great resource to find out about air quality monitoring, and they have a real-time camera that shows the views in Osoyoos. Town encourages everyone to subscribe to the town's e-news and to continue to look at our website for updates as well as the RDOS website. So on behalf of Town Council, I would like to thank our amazing town staff, BC Wildfire, RDOS, other municipalities, and all of the volunteers and local businesses for their continued support for our community. To the residents and businesses who've been affected by the fire, we would like to offer you our continued support and thank you for your cooperation while we work together to deal with this wildfire and the smoke. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKortoff, Mayor of the town of Osoyoos. In just a few moments, we'll ask Mark Pendergraft, who is the chair of the RDOS and the Electoral Area Director for A, if he'd like to share some thoughts. But I'd like to go to Sue Pollack next if we can. Sue is with Interior Health, and it looks like your name is on the screen. Maybe you can give us your title. And I know you have to leave at 1:30, but you were going to talk quickly about air quality and some of the concerns around that. And I know that on, I believe it was Sunday, later in the day, the smoke drifted quite a ways north up here to Penticton and into Summerland and beyond. And it was at one point quite unpleasant, and certainly there are some health risks with that, Sue.
Great, thanks, Eric. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. And I'll just remind you, if you could just give us your title for those media members who are watching.
Sure. So Sue Pollack, I'm the medical health officer for the South Okanagan, and I work with Interior Health. And it's great to hear from Mayor McKortoff that there's the Know Before You Go webpage, which looks like a great resource for checking out things like air quality. So there has been, I think, quite a bit of variability in the smoke in and out of the South Okanagan over the past few days. And yes, I think you're right, Eric, probably Saturday into Sunday was probably the worst. And with this fire and others burning in the region, it's really important just to be aware of some of the health risks from wildfire smoke, and that those smoke levels will vary throughout the day. So I'm going to focus just quickly on 3 areas. So the first one is who is most at risk. So most of us, when we see these higher levels of smoke in the air, will have some symptoms. Many of us will only experience mild symptoms, but certainly those who have respiratory or cardiovascular conditions are at the highest risk, so especially those with conditions like asthma and COPD. But others with conditions like diabetes and mental illness also need to be aware that they could have more significant health impacts. And then those at the extremes of age, so older adults, infants, children, unborn children are also at higher risk. So children breathe more quickly, they have smaller lungs, the lungs are still developing, and they usually spend a lot more time outdoors, so they are at higher risk. So those are the key groups that need to be aware of the impacts of the smoke on their health, although all of us can experience symptoms. So on to symptoms now. So the most common symptoms that most of us will experience during times of poor air quality are things like eye irritation, runny nose, a sore throat, a cough, headaches. And these are generally symptoms that can be managed without seeking medical care, and that will go away once the smoke dissipates. Again, those who have higher risk conditions may experience more severe symptoms. So these are things like shortness of breath, dizziness, chest pain, heart palpitations. So for those people who are experiencing those types of symptoms, they should seek prompt medical care if they're experiencing that during these times of poor air quality. Finally, I just want to touch on a few of the actions that people can take to protect themselves. So the most important thing that we can all do when we have poor air quality is to reduce our exposure to wildfire smoke. And that is through seeking cleaner air. So there's a few ways we can do that. So staying indoors is generally better than being outdoors. We know that smoke can get inside, but our indoor air is going to tend to be cleaner than outdoors. So that means keeping doors and windows shut and being mindful that it can also get very hot inside, especially when we're dealing with extreme heat. So running that air conditioner if you have one. And you can create a cleaner airspace at home if you're able to access a portable air cleaner with a HEPA filter. That's a great way to clean the air in your home. And maybe you can only do that for one room of your home, and that's where you sleep. So creating that cleaner airspace at home is really important. Not everybody can do that. Or have a portable air cleaner in their home, or have a clean airspace at home. So accessing community facilities, especially during the daytime, that are open, such as rec centers, malls, office buildings, where there tends to be clean filtered air, is a great way to seek that reprieve. And if you're unsure, you can reach out to your local government on what might be available for cleaner air spaces. And if you can't keep the air clean in your home, perhaps reach out to a friend or family, neighbor, and say, hey, got poor air quality in my home. Can I stay with you? Can I come hang out for a bit? We also recommend people minimize the time they spend doing outdoor vigorous activity. We all want to appreciate the beauty of the South Okanagan, absolutely. But when it gets really smoky out, try to minimize that vigorous activity outdoors, because the harder you breathe, the more smoke you're going to get into your lungs, and with that particulate matter. And for those that do have chronic conditions, ensure you have a medical management plan in place with your physician. So if you have a condition like asthma, you may have a rescue inhaler. So make sure that's you have a prescription for that, and that's you have enough of a supply. As I mentioned, if you're getting those severe symptoms, really recommend you reach out to a healthcare provider. That could be through a clinic, your family physician, or if it's significant or severe, calling 911. And then there are some great resources out there. So the Air Quality Health Index is a good one. The closest air quality monitoring station is in Penticton. Also, the Smoky Skies bulletins, you can subscribe to those through the provincial site, so you'll know when there are advisories out for the area. And I just want to say, finally, I've been certainly following along with the community of Osoyoos since Saturday. Really appreciate the resilience the community has shown and all of the efforts. Certainly sounds more positive today. And just to ask everybody to keep looking out for one another. So when we get smoky air, reach out to those who may not have access to clean, cool air and see if you can help them. So thank you very much, Eric.
Sue Pollack from Interior Health, thank you very much. That's some really important information and some of the messaging we've heard before, but some very good reminders about how to stay safe. And it is challenging when people want to get out and go for a run or a bike ride or something like that. When the smoke is heavy and thick, it's probably better for you just to stay inside and maybe do something indoors. But thanks for the advice. We do appreciate it. And thanks for joining us. We're going to wrap things up here in just a moment, and I want to thank the mayor of the town of Osoyoos and everyone at the town of Osoyoos. This has been a very active couple of days, and there's been a lot of activity back and forth between the RDOS and the town of Osoyoos, and from staff to elected officials. We do appreciate the cooperation, the collaboration, and especially Mayor Sue McKortoff taking the time to be here every day and sharing some important messages with us, and that type of leadership is certainly appreciated. Speaking of leadership, we also have the vice chair of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen and also the mayor of Princeton. He has the dual role, and that's Spencer Coyne joining on this call, listening in, along with Mark Pendergraft, the chair and the Electoral Area A director. Mr. Pendergraft, any thoughts you'd like to share with us before we wrap up our briefing for August 1st?
No, nothing new other than I would just also like to extend my thanks to everybody that Mayor McKortoff had mentioned. It's really important that those folks get that message of thanks. So I think that's it for today. I'm glad there's less on the evacuation alert. That's a good thing that they're coming off.
Absolutely. Yes, and thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. And we're going to wrap up with just a couple of other items here. And while I do that, I'm going to ask Danny Francisco, who is our operator behind the scenes here, also the Information Services Manager, or Information Systems Manager at the RDOS, to put up our alert map, if he doesn't mind, alert and orders, just so you can see what's going on. But I have some information I wanted to share with you. We were asked during the July 31st briefing about the local fire departments who may be involved in providing support. Often it's with structural protection and others. And I did receive a list from the CAO of the town of Princeton, and these are the ones that he said he's noticed. So these are not necessarily an official list, but it's anecdotally what we've seen out there in the field and what others have seen. We know that fire departments are supporting this effort, the Eagle Bluff Wildfire, supporting BC Wildfire and others. It's West Kelowna is the list includes, Naramata, Karameas, Peachland, Lake Country, Oliver, Willowbrook, Anarchist, Caledon, Oliver, Osoyoos, Search and Rescue. Princeton was gassed up and ready to go, and they were ready to provide some support. They did not get the call. Certainly do appreciate the offer and the support and standing by. So those are the fire departments we do know about. If there were any we missed, we do apologize. I mentioned Search and Rescue as well, and during these events, Search and Rescue provides an incredible resource in many different ways, and certainly appreciate all the different volunteers who are involved. A couple of quick notes, if I can. I wanted to mention that Highway 3, if you're not aware, and you should check your IBC for the latest updates, but along the evacuation order areas through Highway 3, there is no stopping through there. It's really important to keep that highway clear and not to be pulling over in different areas of Highway 3 if the signs are telling you not to. So please do respect that part of this wildfire response. That would be extremely helpful. And the Emergency Support Services, or ESS Reception Center, remains open until 5 o'clock on August 1st. That's located in Karameas at the Karameas Community Center, and if you do need some supports, that's the place to go. You can also register online, and that's something you can do if you're under alert or order, but certainly go to the reception center itself. The address to register online is ess.gov.bc.ca, and I'm just looking for the address for the community center. You'll find it online. It's at 6359 Park Drive. Again, that's the Oliver Community Center, 6359 Park Drive. I think we've shared as much information as we have at this time. Reminder to check the official sources for information during this and any other emergency. And when it comes to the RDOS, you'll find the latest updates at emergency.rdos.bc.ca. BC Wildfire Service is bcwildfire.com. Town of Osoyoos is osoyoos.ca. And then, of course, Drive BC. And as we heard from the mayor of Osoyoos, and we've heard from some of the tourism operators and the tourism associations, if you are coming into the area, know before you go, contact the local tourism operators, look at some of the live webcams that have been made available. In some cases, wineries have offered those to see what's going on. I can tell you that right now, as of almost, I think it's about 1:30-ish, 20 to 2, on August 1st, clear skies in the city of Penticton. Thank you for joining us. We do not have
Excuse me, Eric, can I just interrupt?
go ahead,
I'm
please.
sorry. When you said the community center, you said it was Karamias, and it's actually the address you gave is Oliver. So
Sorry.
could you just correct that before you go off? Thanks.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much. Of course, the reception center is in the town of Oliver, and that is the Oliver Community Center. Thank you, Mayor McKortoff. Mayor McKortoff used to be a teacher, by the way, if you weren't aware, so she keeps us on our toes. I do appreciate that correction. Thank you so much. So that's where the Emergency Support Services Reception Center is, in the town of Oliver. And it will be open, it's scheduled to be open until 5 o'clock on August 1st. But if you do have any questions, the number to call is 250-486-1890. Thanks again, Mayor McKortoff. And thank you for joining us. As I was saying, we don't have a video update scheduled for August 2nd unless conditions change, but you'll always find the latest updates on the websites I mentioned. Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy your long weekend coming up. Thank you.